Hi everyone, Alpha and Monica here with Distill Design, pure business, clear results. And it's our Distill TV Hangout number 5, and we are very excited for today because it's a really hot topic. Woohoo! We're live!
Hot. I like that.
Thanks, Chala. So we're actually going to be introducing our awesome guest today, who we're very excited to have. But let me just tell you a little bit about what today is about. So just to go over it quickly, we're going to be talking with our guest. She's actually a marketing guru, Chala at CoachTactics.com. She's got this really entertaining and eye-opening small business interview series, which is called Get Naked with Your Marketing. And
starting next year.
Yes, starting next year.
Starting today.
Woo! And we've got. She's giving us a sneak preview of that today. And in this series, you can resonate with other entrepreneurs as they reveal their worst marketing mistakes they've made in trying to grow their business. Yeah. Their biggest fears around showing themselves in their marketing. Mm-hmm. And one secret to success in marketing. So I think we're going to be getting a little vulnerable with Chala today, and we're going to be asking her some questions too, so we're pretty excited. Chala, we would like to introduce you and say hello, and we'd like you to tell us a little bit about yourself. Hi, Chala.
Hi, I'm so excited. You guys are so cute, I swear. And I mean, the way that I met Monica is through networking. And, you know, Alpha, I'm sure I've met you too, but Monica's always been, and, you know, we kind of, you know, cross over in what we do. But what always impresses me about Monica is how she doesn't see me as a competitor. She helps me whenever she sees me, and she's just so very authentic. And, you know, naked to me is a metaphor for being authentic. And so if anybody is naked, Monica is that kind of person. So, you know, I love that about you.
Oh, thanks, Chala. That means a lot. And actually, I'm just showing a bit of a painting here behind us today, all about getting naked. Of course, it's literal terms, but today we're going to be talking metaphorically speaking. So,
yep. And you know what? I was telling a guy who was interviewing me in the U.S. He's also a coach, and I told him I have this idea for this series called Naked Marketing. He goes, "Are you going to show up in a towel?" He's like, that would be hilarious. I'm like, that's a little more naked, literal nakedness than I can handle. It took, you know, 46 years for me to get comfortable with, you know, the being naked with my who I am and my thoughts and my emotions. You know, the body, it's going to take probably another 10 years, and, you know, then I'll be doing it in a towel. You'll be in your towels, and we'll be doing it in a towel.
Fantastic. I'm all for that.
Yeah.
Alpha finally speaks up and says something.
Interview in a towel.
Well, you know, exactly. How can you not be vulnerable in that case, right?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Awesome. So what I wanted to ask you, Chala, is, you know, a little bit more about what you do and your business, and, you know, kind of what brought you to Coach Tactics, and yeah, take it away. Let me know.
I was a corporate girl. Did you guys ever work at, like, you know, jobs for big companies before, like corporations, before you did Distill Design?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, well,
yeah.
So you know exactly what I'm talking about, but you're obviously younger than me, so you figured it out earlier than I did. So for 20 years, I worked for companies like Pepsi, Pizza Hut, Frito Lay. I was always in marketing, and then I hated it. I couldn't be who I was. I couldn't disagree with people who, you know, of a higher rank than me, and if I did, it was political suicide, which I committed quite frequently with not very good results for my 20-year career. And so, you know, after 20 years, 3 years ago, I left a very secure 6-figure paycheck with a boss that I had come to really love and respect. And yeah, I did it because I didn't want to die with this, you know, the music in me, the thought in me that I wanted to do more with my life. And so I became like a consultant, a marketing consultant. But it wasn't as easy as it sounds, because even though it's my job to market, I couldn't get any leads. I made a ton of mistakes. I learned along the way. I have formulated everything that I learned over the past 20 years with all the mistakes that I made in my own business. And now I help small businesses figure out their marketing, figure out who is their target, for the love of God. You know, it's not everyone. And what is their specialty? Figure that one out. And it's not always what you want it to be. You're not always, you know, people aren't always willing to pay you for what you want to do. Sometimes there's no market demand for what your passion is, right? So all these things have culminated into, I now call myself the niching coach. And for anybody American, that's niching, because they call that word niche. And what it is to help people, particularly consultants like us, figure out who is the ideal client and then what is the specialty that they can hang their hat around. So that's what I do for a living.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You're helping people find a lot of clarity around just being able to find money in terms of doing what they like to do. I've seen a lot of people out there who have had a passion of something and it's led them nowhere just simply because there's not a market for it. But that's wonderful what you do in terms of being able to find a business connection between that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, think about, you can't do what you do, which is the implementation of the marketing. You can't create a website. You can't create a web stream or a social media stream without knowing what this person specializes in or what this business specializes in and who they're talking to. And I bet you so many people come to you not knowing that and ask you to create miracles and get them clients. And they have no clarity around their strategy, and you're probably struggling with, oh my God.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of the times people do come to us, and it's like they have no idea what they're doing. It's all part of our process too, because we kind of really help to try to get them there too. But it's hard. It's hard because you know, it's hard to get into somebody's brain and what they're thinking. So it's really about asking the right questions, and you hit it on the nail when you said you know, clarity. It's really all about being clear and focused with what that is. Who are you talking to? You know, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. And it's so hard, and you guys get this because we do the same thing for a living, that unless you, first of all, people have to be bought into the fact that you have to have just one focus. I have other colleagues who do the same thing as I do, and they allow their clients to have 2 or 3 different niches. But I don't, because I honestly don't know how to write a marketing plan for more than one target market and more than one specialty. If you have to write messaging for that, multiple niches, you have to generalize everything. And so that it fits into an umbrella. And when you generalize, you dilute, right, instead of distill. So I love that, you know, the name of the company, it stands for what we do, is you have to distill, not dilute.
Yeah, exactly. I never thought of it that way, actually, but you're absolutely right. It's
well,
yeah,
what is the company name for you? What do you guys, how did you name it? Is it your middle name or something?
Actually, it's interesting. If anybody's seen our logo, it's Distill, and the one of the eyes is upside down and then leads to the design underneath. And it's all about distilling design. So really getting down to, you know, sifting and sorting and what that initial, the one message is, the one, like all that clarity and focus, and exactly really just distilling what that message is and distilling all your design work and all your marketing. So it's very focused.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times people have get bombarded with so much stuff, and we put so much stuff on top of what it is we're trying to sell or do. And you know, if you could just think for a second, if you had 10 seconds to actually get through the filter of what people are blocking, what is it that you want to say in that 10 seconds? And that 10 seconds, whatever it is, it has to be very clear, concise, and that's what we try to focus on, is that 10 seconds of attention that someone actually gets.
And that's if your stuff is good.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's not, you have literally 2 seconds to get their attention.
Yeah, especially on a website. Isn't it like 5 seconds that they will leave your website some crazy short time that they're going to leave your website, and unless you capture them with the right messaging, the right design, and some form of irresistible offer to get them to trade their information, you're not going to capture them again. They're gone. And you know, I run into a lot of this retargeting. Do you know what that is? Oh, I'm sure you do. It's in Canada, it's illegal as far as I understand, but for some reason I'm being retargeted like there's no tomorrow. It's when you go onto a website like Expedia, and then every other website I go onto, there's an ad from Expedia, and I'm thinking, how on earth are they advertising in every single thing that I'm going on, right? Before I figured this out, I was really impressed before I figured out that they're just, you know, programming so that they have hidden their cookies and so that they can appear in front of me everywhere I go. And I actually talk about that in my gentle marketing book, because I'm kind of against that, because I don't think that's gentle. I don't know. I mean, it's controversial, but to me, you know, I've written a book about gentle marketing because to me, gentle marketing is when people see your message and they want to talk to you. Like, it's not that you're being intrusive to them, that they are attracted to you and they're like, can I have a minute of your time, or could I talk to you, or what would it look like to work with you after seeing this, for example, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've seen that targeted marketing all the time, and retargeting, and it can be very, very annoying. I didn't actually know it was illegal in Canada, but but it's happening like everywhere, and I agree that it can be annoying. I think there's a lot to be said for it working for some people, but yeah, I think it's definitely maybe not the right way to focus the marketing, for sure.
Well, I'm sure it works, right? I'm sure it works. It wouldn't exist otherwise.
Yeah.
I'm sure it works. It's just not me. It's not how I want to do my marketing. And it is annoying, but I'm sure it works. Like, telemarketing is annoying, but it works.
Does it still?
It must. Otherwise, why would they pay money for, you know, for people to call you? If there's no economic sense for something, it wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I agree. I think under the certain circumstances, under certain products, it can be very effective. I mean, duct cleaning. If you are in a condominium, doesn't make
everybody gets that call.
Do you remember that Seinfeld episode where they were saying Seinfeld picked up the phone and he's like, a telemarketer was calling and something about I don't know. Seinfeld said, "I'll call you back. I'm having dinner, and what's your phone number? I'll call you back later." And they're like, "I can't give you my phone number." He's like, "Well, now you know how it feels." So I do that to people, and it works. It's really funny.
Oh my God! Well, my 5-year-old's now answering the phone, so sometimes he answers, you know, telemarketers, and that's a really good way to get rid of them, because he's like asking them, you know, strange questions about trains and stuff. The other day, he hung up on the clothesline, which is diabetes. Like, they come to the door to pick up your old clothes, which we never miss them because we have so much stuff we just want to keep giving, right? So he hung up on them, and I said, "You hung up on the poor kids," and he's like, "Oops." Because I'm teaching him, right, about the poor kids. And anyway. It's probably not politically correct to call them poor kids, but
we know what you're saying.
Okay. That's the way I can describe it to him. I'm like, they don't have as much as you.
Yeah. Okay, just before we continue, I actually just wanted to make a quick note to everybody that's on the Hangout today that there is a section at the bottom of the screen where you can ask questions. So throughout the Hangout, if you feel like Chala's saying something really cool and you want to ask about it, then just ask, and then we'll ask Chala, and she'll answer for you live. Okay? Okay, so what I wanted to do, Chala, now is I wanted to just quickly show everybody that signed up got this worksheet, and you'll get it in a follow-up email as well. So basically, this worksheet's really going to help us kind of hone in on naked marketing and all that stuff, and really answers some questions that I think Alpha and I have as well for you, Chala, and what our audience has. And what I wanted to do to kind of start this off is talk a little bit more about, you kind of pinpointed what naked marketing is, but I want to talk about it a little bit more. What really is it? What does it mean?
It really means like what we've been doing just now is being ourselves. And people might think that the interview has gone off the rails. It has nothing to do with marketing. But what it really is about it's being yourself, your true self. I know so many people who you may have already interviewed who are trying so hard to be professional and who are so stiff and who are so by the book to the questions and who will only talk about what you've agreed to and who don't open up into their personal life, into their own personality and joke around if they feel like it and say things that are off topic because it reflects who they are and it's what they're thinking. I've learned that being human humanizes you in your marketing. And this is just one tiny example of how I do it. But there are bigger examples. So, for example, in my at the CAPS convention, I don't know if you've heard that there is a convention for Canadian Professional Speakers Association had their convention in Toronto this past weekend, and I spoke there.
Woohoo!
Yeah, which was a real honor. But what happened was the topic that I was speaking about was called the money mindset and how your childhood is running your business, because I come from Turkish immigrant family that we had big stress. Do you guys come from immigrant families?
Actually, yes.
Both, yeah?
Yeah.
Like the first generation or second generation?
First.
First, yeah.
Okay, so same as me. So we, like my parents, came and gave birth, but they came from a very, developing country, and they grew up in the 1950s. And if you see pictures of, and I show pictures during my presentation of this country, you can understand that there was a lot of stress around money for them when they were growing up, and then for us when we were growing up. And that meant in my business that I couldn't charge a lot. I couldn't talk about sales. I would cringe when speakers at the end of their talk would start passing out their sales sheets. I started, like, the moment that I had to shift into quoting my prices in a conversation, I could hear my heart because it was gonna like bounce out of my chest. I would start sweating. I had huge issues around money, right? And it came from my childhood. And not because my parents at the age of 2 sat me down and said, Chala, we're poor. We weren't really, they were just a lot of stress around money. So when I talked about this, as you should talk about, and you're working on all that, to talk about where you came from and your why and your weaknesses and your failures, it humanizes you. And something really strange happened at that talk on Monday. A guy who had read my newsletter, and you get my newsletters, right, Monica?
Oh, yeah. They're awesome. Yeah.
And I actually talk about this in the newsletter coming out tomorrow. The guy, he had read my newsletter, and he got really mad at me. Because in my newsletters as well, I talk very honestly and openly about my opinions. So he was really mad at me. So he saw me coming into the conference, and he ignored me. He didn't want to say anything to me because he was really angry with me. And then he decided to come to my talk, whether to confront me or not, I don't know. But after hearing my story, he felt so much differently towards me because I humanized myself and I told everyone where my triggers were and what came up for me through my childhood. He approached me later afterwards. He wanted to talk to me, and he said that this is what had happened. I had angered him, and that he had made up his mind that he was going to ignore me and not look at me and not talk to me. But he decided to give me a second chance and came to the talk, and he figured out that the reason why he was triggered by my article, which incidentally it was called 5 signs I know you're not really serious about your business. One of the signs was him. And so he said, you know, I really thank you for doing this, for saying that. And I said, do you know that everything that triggers us is what's stopping us? And he said, yeah. So it took me revealing my shameful past and my childhood and painful, you know, upbringing for him to understand who I truly was and to feel closer to me. So this is what you need to do in your marketing, and not just you, but everyone, is when you talk about your shame, your failure, when you talk about how you've gone through it and come out of it and what you learned from it, you help others. It's not about posturing.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
That makes complete sense. Wow.
You know what, Chala? It's interesting because there's been many times where I've kind of experienced the same thing. For the longest time, I wasn't myself. I was all prim and proper, professional, straight cut, my business suits. This is how it's got to be. And it's like as soon as I've kind of let go of that and I started becoming myself, like I used to take anti-anxiety pills. Like I was freaking out being just somebody else. And then as soon as I kind of let go of that and I was like, this is me. Who cares what anybody else thinks? It was just like, just the weight was lifted off, and I can actually speak in front of people without shitting my pants. Like it was, like it's just such a difference.
Yeah, because you're more concerned about giving them something than how you look. Yeah.
Absolutely. And on the flip side, who wants to do business that way anyway? Like, why do you want to be uptight when you're trying to talk to people? And, you know, that people make business decisions based on that person, not on, you know, the character that you put up, the facade that you put up, right?
Yeah. You know, it's really sad, but I have met a couple of people in business who have multi-million-dollar businesses, so they have a lot more at stake than you and I do. But they say that they are in the kind of industry where they have to be unimpeachable. So, for example, a woman who has a company in healthcare, she says that she has to often do court appearances, and she has to provide testimonials for court cases. And she claims that she can never, ever talk about her childhood abuse, because even though that's where she comes from, why she does what she does, she can never put that in her about page or in her talks or in anything, because she feels that that would make her less credible as a witness and take business away from her. And that's her belief, and I don't know if that's true or not. But when I look at the most famous businessmen, like, you know, Donald Trump to Oprah to who's the guy, Virgin, Richard Branson, like they all have vulnerabilities. They all talk about stuff that they went through. I mean, so, but you know, you could argue it's after the fact. It's after they've become so successful. I don't see anything different about these women, and or probably men too, who feel like they'll lose something in their business if they become vulnerable, and the people that I've just mentioned. But that's just me. Like, that's not my company at stake. Maybe if I had millions of dollars, would I feel differently? I don't know. I don't think I can be different anymore. You know, I can't shrink back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really, I like how the shift has come to this. I think that it's completely changing how we do business. But like you're saying about this woman, I mean, I don't even know what to think. I mean, I think that it would probably be, I think that's fear. What would happen, you know, if there was some vulnerability there? Like, you know, and I think that a lot of us feel that way. I know I did for a very long time, and a lot of our clients do too. Like, what would people think if I said this or that? You know, what if I would lose all my money? What if I would lose all my clients? You know, and that's the fear that people think, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what she's fearing, the vulnerability of being imperfect. And I actually said to her, I said, how could you be held responsible for being abused as a child, as an adult? how could that make you less credible in the profession? Like, I just don't get it. But, you know, I have to respect everybody's viewpoint. I can't say that she's wrong. All I'm saying is, for myself and my clients, what I teach is to be vulnerable, to be naked with everything that you're doing. Everything that you're doing that you've done wrong, you've done right, you felt. Even if you're scared now, you say it. Right? And we're saying it now. We're saying, yeah, we don't know how we'd feel if it was ever in jeopardy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We actually have a question coming in. It's from, let's see here.
Andrea?
Actually, that's relatable to something else. That Linda. Oh, okay. Can I ask you a question, Chala?
Yes, that's why we're here.
Okay. Linda's asking, what if my story is like super sad, and how can I make that work for me, or actually, is it okay because it's sad? I have a sad story myself, and I don't talk much about it either. But
yeah, I mean, of course it's okay, right? Of course it's okay. As long as, in my opinion, because I'm a marketing gal, I can't turn that off, right? So I don't want you to just tell me a sad story and leave me hanging. You have to tie it into why you're doing this. Does the sad story relate to why you're doing what you're doing? Then, yeah, but if you're just going to, you know, tell me a sad story and leave me hanging. Like, I remember a speaker, and she was a speaking coach. And she was speaking like years ago, and she was from out west somewhere in, you know, like the prairies. And then she told a story of how she came home and found her brother had killed himself and had shot himself. So like his whole like brain matter was sprayed all over the room, and she never got over that trauma, and she described it in great detail. And it was a dinner. So she was speaking at a dinner.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Anyway, and then she left that. Like, it had, and do you know what I mean? Like, she told the story, she made us feel like crap, and she never tied it anywhere. So don't do that. Like, tie it to, and I don't know if she forgot or if it had anything to do with what she was talking about, but no, she was a book coach. That's it. She was a book coach. So it had nothing to do with what she was doing anyway. We couldn't understand it. Later, we talked amongst ourselves, and we still couldn't understand it. That's the big aha is, you know, it has to be relevant. Everything has to be relevant in a context. Don't just tell me you had trauma and sadness related to either what your clients are going through, or what, you know, you do for a living, or what inspired you through that, or, you know, what you learned and how you apply them today. Like, put it into a context. That's what I gotta say. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a personal question, if that's okay. So you were mentioning how, you know, growing up, you know, parents that are immigrants, and you know, there was always this fear on money, and then that kind of went into your business and how you spoke to people, and you know, how that fear and what that did for you. Are there other areas that you would talk about in your talks or in your marketing, other things that happened in your childhood, or is that like the main story that you use?
Oh God, no. I'll tell any story with, you know, with context. So, for example, I tell the story of I tell the story of my I was on stage speaking, and I had a miscarriage on the stage, and I tell that story about resilience. I used to do talks about resilience, and I talk about how I still went on, and how I was able to still go on, and why I still went on, and, you know, how you can use that experience, how I've used that experience later on with other things which maybe weren't as severe but still applied. And so I use anything and everything at my fingertips. In fact, every single thing I teach is based around a story around my life, or my son, or a client, or, you know, how I met my husband. All these things are because people relate to stories. They remember the way you make them feel. They don't care about information. Information is everywhere, and they're drowning in it. What they are wanting is feeling, emotion.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow.
I'm gonna get depressed. Monica's getting depressed.
You know, I'm actually going through things in my life that's happened, and it's amazing. Like, as soon as I mention those things, it really does humanize me. I know Alpha started mentioning that in his talks, things that's happened to him, and it's amazing what that does in a talk. It's amazing what that does for business and for the people that are listening.
Yeah, because you become a person. You don't become another marketing company, because there's a lot of them out there, and a lot of them don't know, nor do they, or they know and they don't dare to become human.
Mm-hmm.
And go ahead. When you're out there and you're literally exposing your humanness, and human means vulnerable, right? Scared, lost, all those things. If you're able to do that, then you separate yourself from everybody who's posturing. And there's how many marketing companies have I met, have you met? In the same bloody show, they have marketing companies. But how many of them are willing to stand up and expose themselves for who they are? In a good way.
Absolutely. And I think right to the point, too, is that when you do that, you start actually attracting the clients that you actually want, because they resonate with your story. They resonate with what you're saying. They can understand those experiences. And when you have people that are on that level and can feel and understand and say, hey, you know, I like this person more simply because of that, you know, this equates to more business. This equates to getting the type of people that you want to work with and not having those battles, right?
Yeah, I always give the example. You've heard of Suzanne Evans, right?
Yep.
Oh yeah, we go every year.
Oh, you go, right? Okay, so I mean, she's the perfect example. She's like the Howard Stern of coaches. Like, she's got a potty mouth, she's got an attitude, she is larger than life, and she'll tell you how it is in like very graphic terms, right? And there are so many people who find her offensive, who are turned off by her, and who wouldn't spend a minute with her, let alone give her their money. But yet, she's got a multi-million-dollar business. And the reason for that is because that exact personality is what's attracting people. I mean, doesn't she have an event called Grow a Pair?
Yeah.
I mean, how? And I've heard that at her events, she has a grenade, like a toy grenade, that she's emblazoned with the letter F, and she throws F-bombs into the audience, and she sells these little toys. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, we've gotten F-bombs before. Yeah.
Unbelievable. I love that woman. I use her as an example in all of my workshops.
Yeah, she's pretty cool. I totally resonate with that, and I love going to her event every year, Be the Change event. It's awesome, and it's yeah, it's just that it's the vulnerability and just being yourself and the swearing and all that. I love it, and it's in a world where we're it's so frustrating, and it takes my breath away just looking at these damn people that are just so like professional, and they won't do any potty mouthing, and they're just all strict, and I love, you know, honestly, okay, you know what, I went to a networking event yesterday and I pitched somebody's butt, and you know, it was so funny.
You have to tell me about this.
You know what, like, just have some fun and just be funny. You know what, it's we're so serious. And one of the things I tell people now, it's like, it's not business to business anymore. It's human to human. Just have a good time. Like, we're all in the same boat, and we're doing what we love, and just have a good time with it and be yourself.
I know.
It's so worth it.
Yeah, and you know what? I can't judge anyone, even if they are uptight and stuck in that box, because I was that. And it's like a journey. So if I had never been that, I could never be this, right? So I have to respect them. And some people can never grow out of that, and that's their path. but I respect them, and I feel for them, you know, because I know what's going through their mind. If you think what they're reflecting is, you know, perfection, perfection is correlated really highly, perfectionism is correlated really highly with anxiety and depression, statistically. And
Really?
yeah, and perfectionism is the inability to show your weakness, which is vulnerability. So if you've ever heard of Brené Brown, she's she calls herself the vulnerability researcher in the U.S. She's unbelievable. She has opened up this whole area around vulnerability, and she has reams and reams of data around how happier people are vulnerable and depressed people are not.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So there's a scientific reason to get naked.
So that's very interesting because you know what? I'll give you my personal experience. Like I was saying before, that I was all professional. Had to be, you know, my business suits. I had to be prim and proper, and I actually wasn't very happy at all. And it's interesting now. People know me for being incredibly positive, like abnormally positive.
Well, you're very bubbly. Yeah, I must agree. I agree.
You know, I look at everything with positivity. Everything is positive. Like, you know, my mom recently got sick, and she's positive about it, and I'm positive about it, and we're all positive about it because it's all okay. And, you know, like, we're all just being happy about it because, you know, what else is there? Just the positivity is, and being ourselves is what's bringing us to that next level. And I think that it's all psychological.
Yeah, it's a decision that you make.
Yeah.
You decide to be miserable if someone's miserable. You decide to
it's a decision
in that scenario. So.
But you guys are also no, but you guys are also very open to learning and developing, which I picked up. Because you mentioned all these coaches that you're with, and you mentioned how you go to other coaches' events to learn from them. And so, to me, having coaches in my life if you don't have teachers, how are you going to learn? How are you going to change?
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have mentors that are either in the same industry or in a different industry, but have kind of been in the same boat and have had the same experiences. Because you can learn from that, right? Yeah. All right, well, so let's talk a little bit more about this naked marketing thing and this woman behind us. No, I'm just kidding.
She's not naked enough.
I know. Like, do we need to see her face?
I think that's something else I'm looking at.
So you spoke you touched a little bit on niche, and I wanted to talk a little bit about it because actually we spoke about that with our past guest, and I just wanted to hone in a little bit about niche and why that's important in naked marketing.
Awesome. There was actually, I'm just gonna go to the handout. There's actually, is there a picture about? Oh yeah, picking a really defined and focused niche. Number 4, daring to pigeonhole yourself. So this is a list of things to do that will make you successful. And one of the biggest fears that I encounter, you guys have been to the States a lot, right? In these networking and that. So I hadn't done that because I have a 5-year-old, but I hadn't done that until this summer. And I went to a whole bunch of different events and trade shows I took part in the U.S. And one thing I noticed, maybe you noticed it too, is that the American small business owners, first of all, they call it a niche, but are so much more open. They have embraced this idea of focusing, and they want it. Like they not only understand it, know it, but they're all over it. And I'm talking about from students that I've met with like painting businesses, to lawyers, to housewives who have multi-level marketer, like unsophisticated small businesses. They are all talking. In fact, they said to me, they said something, oh yeah, they said it's find your riches in a niche or something like that. Like they played back a slogan. I'm like, wow. And what I found, And when I was in the corporate world, 20 years, every year they'd say, Chala, we're launching new products for Pepsi. We're launching new products for, Smirnoff. And so every year I'd have to find the niche. I'd have to find who's the ideal client type, and then what is the positioning that we're going to hang our hats on. And that's what I did every year, all year. And then when I left and I looked at all these small businesses where we network, Monica, they're completely resisting niching. And I couldn't figure that out. So I thought, oh my God. And when in the US, I thought, I found my, the mothership. Everybody knows about niching and everybody wants one. And they just don't know how to find it, right?
Right.
So that in Canada, in our business circles, I find it for less sophisticated, less developed businesses, not the ones that are making multiple six figures, but the less developed ones, it's a big, big challenge. It's been a huge issue. But as I've changed my practice to the six-figure businesses and multi-six-figure, they understand more that they have to focus. So have you found that to be true, that there's a resistance?
Yeah, it is certainly true. It's a very, very different environment when you go to the U.S. and talk to people there. They're very serious about their business, and they're very open. I don't find that a lot in Canada, and it's quite sad. But I think that a lot of people that do the networking, when they go to the U.S., they come back with that flavor. They come back with that knowledge, and
sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think the transition is happening, though.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are. I think it's a matter of it coming over to Canada,
yeah.
And I think we're usually a year behind when it comes to certain trends that happen in the networking industry. But I'm personally starting to see that information filter over to our side. So.
Oh, good. Thank God. Well, I'm doing my best to be the most vocal, niching coach, to talk about almost everything I talk about. I have videos about why your social media is not working. It's not working because you don't have a niche, or you don't have a clearly defined niche, or it's not the right niche. You can get a niche, but if no one's willing to pay for it, 42% of companies fail in 20 months because of lack of market demand, right? So the same thing we were talking about.
Was that the LinkedIn article that you did?
Yeah.
That was the best article I ever read.
But it's thank you, and it's not. I didn't come up with that stat, but I talk about it all the time because it's so scary. It's so scary, and when I worked for these big companies and we launched 5-6 new products a year, we had a strategy for a system for figuring out the niche. How do people figure out the niche if they're a small business? They don't have a system. They fall into it if they're lucky. They fall into their ethnicity or their geography niche, or they do the business long enough years that one kind of person just keeps coming to them, and so they're like, oh, that's my niche. I'm just going to stick to that now. Other people are like throwing spaghetti at the wall and they're trying everything. I always talk about in my presentations, there's a woman whose mother unfortunately died, and she went through so much anguish that she decided right then and there to become a grief coach. And for 2 years, she told me this story when I met networking. For 2 years, she couldn't get a single client. Because guess what happens in Canada when somebody dies? Who gives you grief counseling? Your church or the hospice or the hospital? And do they charge money? No. Was she doing it for free? No. She had free competition, and if anybody's seriously in need of, like, they're in depression, they would have to get medication, so they'd have to go to a real therapist, right, or a real doctor. So she had no market, but she didn't know to do the research. All she did was for 2 years she went and she did talks and she did networking and she wrote books and she wrote blogs and did that. There was no market for it. After 2 years, she decided she get the help, right? Now she can't afford help, but she still, is of the mind that she's still going to try. But how can you lose so much time? But unfortunately, 80% of businesses are out in 5 years, and that's the reason. And they have to leave because they can't make enough money to sustain anything, let alone get any help. And what I say is, if you start doing, when I start working with a client, in 2.5 weeks, they know their niche if they've done the work. Because we have a process where they go out, they ask a series of questions, there's a way to identify different niches, and then there's a way to ask them questions. It's all very systematic and procedural, and then they have the answer, and then we go into a session where we do the planning, right? How else are you going to know? And they're trying to decide the niche based on their gut or their family, asking their husband or wife, or looking at their competitors. Maybe that's not the right niche for your natural networks. Maybe it's not the right fit for your skill set and background. So there's all these criteria that you have to. I get really passionate about this. I can go on.
Like, it's interesting how people think they can kind of do everything on their own, and we find that in our business too. It's like we're all so close to our businesses, so finding that extra support from somebody, I think, is so vital, especially when you want to try to find your niche, or with us, you know, get that logo done, or that website, or the branding, whatever. Like, you know, it's so important to have an outsider's perspective, ask you the right questions, give you the clarity. And we all love our family, we all love our friends, and God knows I ask my mom for advice all the time, and she's awesome. But you know, like, it's more for support. We have to realize it's more for support, and you need that clarity, and to really be successful in your business and talk to the right people, to seek out that professional that will help get you there.
Absolutely. I mean, I love my husband, I love my parents, but I don't ask them for advice for work. I hire experts in their field to take me to the next level. And in 3 years, when in 5 years most businesses go out of business, and I'm a coach, right? I'm a member of the ICF International Coach Federation. Guess what the median income is, annual income, for all coaches in the world?
What?
Guess. How much money? How much money coaches earn, median earning per year?
100,000.
20.
No. Really?
Wow.
Median, yeah. So, and that's published by the International Coach Federation. They do surveys every year. So when I saw that, I knew I had to do something different, and I knew I couldn't do it alone. So I've been hiring really high-level coaches, just like Suzanne, and I was able to, within last year I tripled my sales, and this year I increased it by 40%.
Woohoo!
And it wasn't, thank you, but it wasn't doubling, right? I had really high goals. So, but what I'm trying to say is I've doubled my paycheck. And I don't say this to brag. I tell you this because unless you hire people who are experts in what they're doing and who are further down the line than you can't do that. You can't grow that fast. I mean, think about yourselves. Tell me about your growth. And I know you've worked with coaches.
Yeah, we've worked. We had a coach for a year and a half, and it made all the difference for us. We went from Alpha was working full time. Within 6 months of working with a coach, he was working full time on our business with me, and in no time we were a 6-figure business. It took a hell of a lot of work, but if you do what the coach is telling you to do, it works. For God's sakes, it works. Like, if these people are much more advanced than you, they've been there, they've done that, they've had the experiences. If you listen to what they're saying, it works. It gets you from A to B. So what we're doing now is we have mentors in the same industry. We're talking to other coaches, and we're getting lots of great advice and tips along the way, and now kind of getting specialized help in different areas of our business. So right now we're working with like a speaking coach, and making sure that our speaking is really great, our story coach. So it makes all the difference, guys. It makes all the difference.
I am so like such a proponent, lifelong learner. A guy who sat next to me at the Caps dinner, they had like a gala dinner, everybody was all dressed up, and I didn't know about it. I was the only one in like tights. And anyway, I said next year I'm going to dress up like crazy. But anyway, so this gentleman sat next to me, and he had just won an award. He had like a medal, and I said, oh my God, it looked like a gold medal. I said, well, how do you win that thing? And he said, well, you have to make $250,000 a year just speaking. And then he said a whole bunch of other things, right? Like professional speaking, and then he said a whole bunch of other criteria. And I was like, oh my God, that's not easy to do, right? I mean, to be a professional. And so, I'd never heard of him. Like, I'd never even seen him before. And I said, how did you, when so many speakers can't even get one gig, you know, and can't get more than $500, how did you do that? And he said, I paid $50,000 to a coach in the U.S. His name is Les Brown, he said. I'm like, that's exactly what I did. I know. So anyway, it's just, I tell that story now because it's just such a truth. And it's almost like an insider's secret. Because it's almost like once you make that sort of investment, you think at a different level, you operate at a different level.
Yeah. There's a number 5 on the worksheet where it's one of the fears that people have in naked marketing is using a distinctive personality trait that you have in your marketing. Can we talk a little bit about that? Because sometimes I find that it's hard. I know in the beginning it was really hard for us to kind of think of that, and then I know sometimes it changes too. So what do you, I mean? What are some examples of that, and how do you help your clients find that?
So the distinctive thing is what people have been telling you all your life. So one of the things for me, you'll see it's in my signature, my tagline is the no nonsense thing. So for years and years, I've lost jobs, lost friends, lost positions, lost seniority, lost stuff because of how no nonsense, direct, lost boyfriends, no nonsense and direct I was, right? Everybody always used to say to me, God, Chala, you're so direct. I used to have an ex-boyfriend, he used to call me a Brillo pad. Like he said, you're so abrasive. I'm like, for him, it meant that I said what I meant. I mean, through the years, I've learned to temper it with kindness, and in the corporate world, of course, I learned to completely try to obliterate it, but you can't. You are who you are, right? So I'd often be in boardrooms telling CEOs from the U.S. who were our CEOs' bosses that I didn't agree with them, right? And in that type of setting, it didn't go over well. But in my own business, it's the thing that attracts people to me. I've had so many clients say to me, you are exactly like I am, and that's what I love about you. I really love that. And so with other clients, like for example, I had a woman who, she never became a client, but we were talking about her brand, and she wanted to be a coach, and she was still an exotic dancer. Like she was in her 40s, so good on her. I don't have the energy to go to my boot camp class, let alone, like to do that for a living. An exotic dancer, wow. And she didn't want it to come out that she wanted to dancer. So in my opinion, that sets her so apart. Are you getting some feedback? The noise?
Yeah, I think it's fixed.
Okay. I think if positioned herself as an exotic former exotic dancer, coaching people, years, whatever. Is it still fixed?
It looks like it's come back.
Should I do something?
I think your Ethernet cable is connected still, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it coming across?
It's
a volume thing. It's just cutting in and out.
Cutting in and out, yeah.
Should I lower?
We are live.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll just say that I told her that she should in her brand. I still believe that set apart. You would have instant credibility for through transitions or brave things. It takes a lot of courage.
I think that's totally true. I mean, especially being an exotic dancer, right? Like, I think that it's, I think it's really important to kind of hone in on what that personality trait is. And I love that you said that you were always like straight to the point, that kind of a straight to the point approach. What I tell a lot of people is I'm like all about no BS. And it's funny because I used to work at YMCA. And they always told me that, and I was actually one of the best employees. They wanted to promote me to like a supervisor and everything, but they always told me that I was curt. I was so curt. And it's like, you know that works so well in our business now?
Yeah.
Because it's like a no BS approach. I'm telling everybody, this is what you need to do. Listen to what I'm saying. I know what I'm talking about. We've been doing this for over 10 years. Like, and it doesn't come across very nicely, unfortunately. But that's me, and I'm being so genuine when I'm talking that way. So I love that you're like that, Chala. Thank you for sharing that.
I knew there was some reason.
So I think we're actually coming up to 1 hour of our hangout today.
It's just flown.
It has flown, and I love that we didn't go by the book. I love it. This is so much fun.
Yeah.
You're hired. You can come on our hangout every month.
You're so sweet. I still think you should take it on the road for 2.
Yeah, I think we will. Actually, we're going to be doing some speaking together, so I'm really excited. Chala, thank you so much for being on our hangout today.
Yeah, this was absolutely outstanding. This was very fun. We have to do this again.
Thank you. So, Chala Dinkoy of Coach Tactics, CoachTactics.com, and if you actually go to her website, you can get an awesome free download. And what is that download called? Is it Brand Like a Celebrity?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's an awesome download, guys. Take advantage of that, and I'll send a follow-up email to everybody that registered as well, and you'll get that in the email. And the replay will be available on YouTube.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chala.
Thanks, Chala.
Holiday.
You too. Have a happy holiday and Merry Christmas to everybody that celebrates. Bye.